I am super excited to share this with you. This is a summary of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. This is the very first book I started to read when I started my self-improvement journey a couple years ago. I was living in Hong Kong at the time. They have these like little kiosk things. They're green and they usually just have a bunch of junk. I never noticed this lady and I just happened to spot this in her little kiosk and I grabbed this and a few other books. I remember reading this thinking everything in this book is amazing. Like, oh, awareness, you can see what you're doing and observe it in principles and things that we're going to talk about and all these different habits you can have. My mind was just blown. I rated this one as a life-changing must-read, and I have book summaries. I have them on my website. I'll put the link down below. I'm an old teacher. I taught for like 14 years, so I got like whiteboards and markers. But yeah, I'm going to give you the one sentence final takeaway at the very end of this video. In one sentence, one thing that you can do to get all of the lessons incorporated into your life. So stick around for that and hopefully that helps. But let's hop into this. I'm a huge fan of quotes. The first one that I love that I think summarizes the book up entirely is, you can't talk your way out of problems you behave yourself into. This is what he talks about in the whole book. Many of us have behaved ourselves into these problems and then we think we can think our way out. That leads to this first point of the entire book, and truly this has been one of the most influential things. It's what started this whole cascade of self-improvement for me. My saying is, don't think, do, always do. And people ask, like, always do, is it like a Nike, like just go do it? And it's nothing like that at all. It's this right here. First introductory point is principles. In the world, it is governed by these laws, more or less, that he calls principles. Living by those principles, honesty, integrity, fairness, human rights, diligence, all of these things you can find in the world and you'll be like, yeah, that's a good thing, right? You don't even know why it is, but you just know. And these are the principles that guide the world that we live in, and we know that they're there and you can feel them. Find the principles that are important to you and put those into your life. For me, my biggest one was integrity. And this is the always do principle. You always do what you say you're going to do. That is one of the principles that I chose. If you look at your life, you're gonna see how many times we're like, okay, I'm gonna eat healthy today, and then you don't. Or you're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna exercise tomorrow, and then you don't. It's these little things. Every time you say something that you're going to do and then you don't do it, you lose part of your life, you lose part of your identity, you lose trust in yourself. And if you don't have that, you can't have any accountability, you can't have any trust with yourself or other people, your relationships are strained, all of these things start to happen. If you live by these, you will become a person who has character. It reminds me of like the Stoic philosophy of living with like character and purpose, you know, like very stoic. Honesty, integrity, purpose, all of these things lead to character, but you have to choose your principles first, decide what your principles are and your values and what's important to you. And if you do start living that way, you're gonna have character. And then his next introductory point, which is really important. It's kind of an old school word. I remember learning that when I was getting my master's degree, and they would call all these things paradigms. Sound really cool. You could use it with friends and family and they'll be like, whoa, you're super smart. But basically it just means the way you see the world, the lens, the glasses that you wear, that you see the world and your expectations, how you think things should be. And it's kind of this cascade effect, right? You choose these principles, you start to have character, you see the world in a different way and you start to have different expectations. Effectiveness for him is balancing results with capability. The golden egg and the goose is what he refers to it in the book, or the P and the PC balance. Again, that's one of my complaints with the books. I do love it. I call it life-changing must read, but one of the complaints is it's a little confusing, unnecessarily wordy. Like, you don't need to do that. It's just results, what you get, and the capacity to do things. The perfect example is exercise. This is always a perfect thing. You need to balance the actual results you get from exercising. However, you also have to take care of your body. You need rest days. We see this often with productivity advice that's out there now. Everyone's like, you know, you gotta grind, Get good results from that, probably, but you're going to certainly burn out. This is one of my favorite quotes from the book and one of my top 3. I put it in there and it's a perfect place to transition. But until a person can say deeply and honestly, I am what I am today because of the choices I made yesterday, that person can never say, I choose otherwise. Until you accept that you are where you are in life because of all of the choices that you made. If you're not happy right now, or you're in a tough place, or you're unhealthy, or you want to change things, you have to say, I put myself here. My choices put me here. Until you can do that, you can't really choose to change anything. You have to take 100% responsibility for everything in your life. And the big argument here always comes back to, well, what if there's like a hurricane, or something bad, or there's like abuse or something? Of course it's not your fault that something terrible happens to you. It's not your fault. That is different. It is still your responsibility in how you choose to react to that. And that is habit number 1. And he references Viktor Frankl's very famous book, Man's Search for Meaning, in which Frankl says the same idea. No matter what, you always have the freedom of choice to choose how you respond. There's just this tiny little moment. Let's say right here, somebody throws this at me and it hits me in the head. And I have that 1 second, maybe even less than a second, to choose my response. That's it. In that really split second, that's it. That is the moment. That's the moment you have to identify. That's what you have to start noticing. That's what you have to see. And that's what you have to realize that, yes, that is still your choice. And that is where your life is basically decided. If you look back at everything you've ever done, it's all in those little moments. Go back to exercise, but you say you're going to exercise, and I do this to myself, and then in that moment of decision, you're like, I don't want to, it's cold out, or it's raining, or, I'll do it tomorrow. That is it. That's where your life is decided, in those little moments. He also calls this thing the circle of influence. Again, maybe a little too complicated. It just basically means focus on the things that are in your control. You can't control the weather, so don't worry about it. It's not even worth it. Focus on what's in front of you and what you can control. I should have said this before. Maturity. As you move down through the habits, you're supposed to be more mature. You go from being a dependent person to an independent person to an interdependent person, where you start to work together with people. Habit number 2 is possibly my favorite of the 7 habits. Nature of your choice. Actually, it ties back into principles. I miss this. I haven't really written on a whiteboard in a long time. I might really enjoy doing these book summaries. I hope you enjoy them. So habit number 2 is the nature. What kind of choices are you going to make? And you'd be like, oh, I don't really know. Like, what choice am I supposed to make? Boom. You decide on your principles first. And he gives one of my favorite exercises. It was the first time I came across this one, and it is the funeral exercise. I'll never forget reading it. The idea is you're driving to someone's funeral, you're driving there, you're on your way there, and you get to the funeral and you see everybody crying, you see like your family and some friends and everyone's crying, and then it's your turn to go up to the casket, to say your goodbyes, and you get up there and it's you, and you see you there. And I was like, oh my God, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. After you see yourself, who that is, people are going to come up. You're going to have some family, some friends, some coworkers, and it's, what do you want those people to say? And I just remember doing that exercise, and it became so clear to me what you want people to say when you're gone. I was like, what do I want my friends to say? What do I want my family to say? That you're loving and kind and helpful and always there for them. These things, and that reveals the principles that you think are really important to you. Super amazing exercise. Any book you read, do the exercises. You don't have to do them all, but try to do some of the really, really important ones. Habit 3, this is probably one of his more famous ones. It gets referenced all the time. You probably have heard this. It's super useful. It's about prioritizing the choices you make. So start to look at your life and start to see what is a priority for you and start to plan. And he has another kind of famous exercise that I see quite often, is what he calls the quadrants, the 4 quadrants. Maybe it would make sense to write those out. The 4 quadrants that he has in the book, and again, it gets referenced quite often. Urgent and important. These are things like, emergencies you kind of have to put out right away. Urgent but not important. This is probably more of like the phone calls that, you get, and you're like, that's not really important. That doesn't matter for the long-term goal that I'm focused on. And these are all of the distractions that we get all of the time from other people. And then not urgent, not important, trash, right? Get rid of those as much as you can. Where you want to focus is quadrant 2. The not urgent, but important. Again, I'll go back to exercise. Exercise isn't urgent. We can always put it down on the priority list. It's so easy to push that one down, right? Sleep a little bit longer, or get to work because that's more important, or so you think, or it's more urgent. But in the end, these things are far more important in the long term for the life that you want to live. Try to focus on activities that are in quadrant 2. Habit 4, super straightforward, but now there's a little switch, right? The first 3 are all focused on you, getting your life right, figuring out who you are, the principles you want to live by, and now we're starting to get into emotions that you have for yourself and for other people. And then habit number 4 is all of our relationships and all of our conversations should always be a win-win, never a win-lose. This goes for parenting, this goes for working, dealing with your children, friends and family. You're always looking for that alternative solution. Life is not a zero-sum game. There's enough to go around for everybody. So this is having an abundance mindset for everything in life. One thing that he introduces here is called the emotional bank account. Some people might not like it. For me, I wasn't very emotional growing up, and I thought this was really helpful to understand the idea of, he calls it deposits and withdrawals. So every time you do something, if you make a promise to somebody and you're like, okay, I'll meet you there at 6:30, and then you don't show up, or you even show up late, that's a withdrawal. That takes away from trust. And the big thing is, in this idea, is trust. The biggest thing, think of all of your relationships, all of your friendships, all of the people that you love. If you don't have trust there, you don't really have anything. The 2 biggest things, I've always said this, are trust and communication. Habit 5 has one of my favorite stories in the entire book. This conversation between Stephen Covey and a father. The father was saying, I don't understand my son, he doesn't listen to me. Covey says, wait, to understand someone, don't you have to listen to them? And the guy was like, huh. Yeah, but anyways, I don't get it. I can't understand him. He doesn't listen to what I tell him to do. And then he keeps going on, and he just goes over his head. And I was just like, wow. Because we say that all the time. We're like, oh, I don't understand that person. They don't listen. Like, I tell them to do something and then they don't do it. But how can you understand them if you're not listening?
A father once told me, I can't understand my kid. He just won't listen to me at all. Let me restate what you just said, I replied. You don't understand your son because he won't listen to you. That's right, he replied. Let me try again, I said. You don't understand your son because he won't listen to you. That's what I said, he impatiently replied. I thought that to understand another person, you needed to listen to him, I suggested. Oh, he said. There was a long pause. Oh, he said again, as the light began to dawn. Oh yeah, but I do understand him. I know what he's going through. I went through the same thing myself. I guess what I don't understand is why he won't listen to me. This man didn't have the vaguest idea of what was really going on inside his boy's head. He looked into his own head and thought he saw the world, including his boy.
So the whole idea, seek first to understand. This is another one that I get reminded of that I love so much, and it comes from Greenlight's Matthew McConaughey in his book. There's a really emotionally charged part there where traveling somewhere with some friends and they're all arguing, and this and that, that's not right and that. And then they turn to McConaughey and they're like, hey, McConaughey, what do you think about all this? And he's just like, well, I think he's right. And the guy looks at him, he says, it's not about being right. It's about understanding. And I was like, oh, I get chills again thinking about that. Adam Peterson in his book talks about it in 12 Rules of Life, of how conversations like this, that when you're really trying to understand the other person's point of view and where they're coming from and how they got there, you can broaden your horizons in your mind so much more. And it's been truly helpful. So seek first to understand. Habit number 6 is tie in all the other habits that he has. And that one is synergize, another really big word you can use and be like, yeah, we made some synergy. I don't know why. This one is basically to just bring everything together and to learn how to cooperate with other people. This is why, again, I love the book. It was the first one I read. I'm super biased. It changed my life, but do we need to say synergy? It's just cooperation. Learn how to work with people, learn how to build trust back in the emotional bank account and things like that. Make more deposits and withdrawals, and just believe that's true, that there's enough for everybody. And when you actually believe that, oh, if I help them, that makes the whole pie bigger and better and stronger. Let's do the last one, habit 7. I'll wrap this up. I'm so excited to finally be making book summaries. I've been putting this off forever. The last one, habit 7, super simple, but he makes it kind of fun and easy to remember, I guess. I've always remembered this one. Yeah, sharpen the saw. It's basically to do habit 1 through 6 repeatedly, and just remember that you don't just do them one time and then that's it. Everything's finished. And I learned this with everything that I do. When I make these videos and I look back at my old ones, I'm like, oh, awful. I can't even look at myself. And hopefully, strangely enough, I hope I look at this one and I'm like, oh, that's terrible, you know, a year from now, because that means you're growing and you're progressing. And you should see this all the time because you're sharpening the saw. You're trying to go through these habits again and learn and relearn the skills. So the idea is, remember to sharpen it, but he gives 4 categories. So body, they're the usuals. You know these, right? Sharpen the saw with your body. Wait, that didn't sound right at all. Don't sharpen the saw with your body. Don't do that. Sharpen the saw, take care of your body, your mind. Then he talks about the spiritual aspect of things, which is also very important. Next one is social and emotional. And again, this is why I think this book was published in 1989. That's why I think he was a little bit ahead of the game, right? Because we hear about emotional intelligence all the time now. Managing your emotions, learning emotional control, learning emotional intelligence, learning how to deal and interact with other people. Okay, this is it. Last piece of advice in one sentence. Check out my website. I'll leave the link below. Sign up for the newsletter. I send out a newsletter every week. I'm going to start sending out book summaries plus little bits of actionable advice. Here it is. 7 habits highly effective people. Do this one thing. 1 sentence summary. Pick your values and let them guide your life and every decision you make. I chose integrity as my #1 thing, so I have this schedule that I keep here, and every time I write something down on that, and when it comes to the moment, in that moment of choice where I don't want to do it, I remember that I wrote it down and I have to, because integrity to me is all that matters. Find what matters to you. And remember, simplify your life. Don't overthink things and always do what you say you're going to do. See you next time. I just started. I messed up already. Microphone thingy. That was the first thing. I botched that immediately. How was that even possible? Say you need good audio. Let's do it. What? This is such a long title. Who makes the title so long?